The Godswood was too still for a night before the end of the world. Snow lay in soft drifts around the roots of the heart tree, and the red leaves moved only when a faint wind pushed them into a whisper. Jon Snow stood with his gloved hand on the cold bark, breath pluming in the air, while somewhere far beyond the walls of Winterfell, the dead marched toward them. "He's coming," Bran said. Jon glanced back at his brother. His cousin, his mind corrected, as if the thought had teeth. Bran sat in his wooden chair, wrapped in furs, face as expressionless as the carved weirwood behind him. Only his eyes betrayed anything old and far away. "I know," Jon answered. "The scouts saw them before the storm swallowed the line. An hour, maybe less." Bran's gaze did not shift. "I did not mean the Night King." The words landed like stones. Jon stiffened. The weight that had been riding his shoulders since the crypt, since Sam's shaking voice in the dark, grew heavier. He had not slept since that night. "You shouldn't have told me," Jon said quietly. "Not now. Not before this." "You asked," Bran replied, as if discussing the weather. "You needed to know who you are." "I know who I am," Jon snapped, more sharply than he meant. His voice cracked the stillness, and he lowered it at once. "I swore my life to the North, to this fight. It doesn't matter what some old book says." "It is not only a book," Bran said. "I saw it. Your father, Rhaegar Targaryen, and your mother Lyanna Stark. I saw them together. I heard her speak your name." Jon shut his eyes. "Aegon," she had whispered, blood on her lips. "Protect him, Ned." A dead woman's plea, bound to the man who'd raised Jon and never spoken the truth. Everything had been built on that lie. The wall, his vows, the North's trust. His own name. "I rode a dragon," Jon said, half to himself. "Your visions and Sam's pages, maybe I could have pretended they were wrong. But Rhaegal," he swallowed. The memory of green wings beating the cold air, the living heat of scales beneath his hands, came back with humiliating clarity. "He let me climb on his back like he'd been waiting for me." Bran's eyes followed a drifting leaf. "The world is changing. Old truths are being dragged into the light. Whether you speak your name or not, others will. They will see what you did on Rhaegal tonight, and they will ask why." "I'm not a Targaryen," Jon said, throat tight. "I was raised in the North. I was raised a Stark." "You are both," Bran replied. "Ice and fire. You can't choose one half of yourself because it hurts less." Bootsteps crunched over the frozen path. Davos appeared between the trees, hair and beard thick with frost. "Jon," he called, dipping his head politely to Bran. "They're forming the lines. Lady Sansa wants you at the walls. The Queen as well." Jon's hand dropped from the weirwood. "I'll be there." Davos lingered. His tired eyes moved between Jon and the boy in the chair, sensing tensions he did not know how to name, and then he turned back toward the castle. "Whatever I am," Jon said once they were alone again, "it can wait. If we lose tonight, names won't matter." Bran's gaze seemed to look through him, beyond the heart tree and the snow and the living world. "It will matter," he murmured. "What you are will change what comes after this night." Jon had no answer for that. He drew his cloak tighter around him, turned his back on the bleeding face of the tree, and walked toward the distant sound of horns and men shouting on the battlements, carrying the secret like a second sword across his back. The courtyard boiled with noise and breath and fear. Horses stamped and snorted. Armored men cursed as they adjusted straps and cinched belts, and the Unsullied stood in perfect ranks like stone pillars under falling snow. Above it all, the dragons loomed, Drogon's dark bulk rising like a hill of iron and scale. Rhaegal coiled beside him, his green eyes narrowed and watchful. Jon crossed the yard with Davos at his shoulder, the chill biting even through the weight of his furs and armor. Ghost trotted at his heels, white fur ghosting against the dark. The smell of dragons, sulfur, smoke, something wild and hot, wrapped around them. Daenerys waited near Rhaegal's foreleg, flanked by Missandei and Grey Worm. Her silver-blonde hair was braided and pinned with small bits of dragonglass, glittering like black stars. She wore no crown, only leather and mail and fur, yet she seemed to Jon more dangerous than any king he had ever seen. "Jon," she said as he approached. Her eyes searched his face. "Sansa said you were in the Godswood, paying my respects," Jon answered. He could feel Bran's gaze lingering in his skull. "Is everything ready?" "As ready as it can be," she said. She gestured toward the walls, where the faint line of trenches waited to be lit. "Drogon and I will burn the first wave and light the fire. You and Rhaegal will guard the flanks and look for the Night King. He will come for Bran." Jon's hand slid, almost without thinking, along Rhaegal's neck. The dragon's skin was warmer than any fire, thick and rough under his glove. Rhaegal turned his head, pupils dilating as he regarded Jon, and a soft rumble vibrated up through the scales. "He likes you," Daenerys observed. "Strange," Jon said. His mouth felt dry. "I'm not sure I like what that means." Her brow furrowed. She dismissed Grey Worm and Missandei with a small nod. When they were alone among the noise, her voice dropped. "Since the crypt, you've been distant. You look at me like I'm a stranger." He hesitated. The word Sam had thrown at him, "Your real father was Rhaegar Targaryen, your mother was Lyanna Stark," crowded his tongue and lodged there. He could say them now. He could share the burden before the world ended. Instead, he said, "We'll talk after, if there is an after." "There will be," she said sharply, as if she could not afford doubt. "We've come too far to die here in the snow." Her hand touched his sleeve briefly, a ghost of warmth. "Ride with me. Let them see us together. Let them see what dragons and men can do." Jon glanced toward the gathering hosts. Northern lords come from long-forgotten keeps, free folk in mismatched leathers, knights of the Vale under proud banners. They all stole glances at the dragons. He felt their stare when his hand rested on Rhaegal, felt the whisper of it climbing the walls. "Ice and fire," Bran had said. "All right," Jon said. He swung himself up toward the waiting ridges of Rhaegal's back, the movement smoother than it had any right to be. Muscles he didn't know he had remembered, the grip, the balance, the rhythm of flight. Rhaegal bowed his head to let him settle. Daenerys watched him. For a heartbeat, something unreadable crossed her face. Then she turned and climbed Drogon as if she had been born in the saddle of a dragon, and the courtyard fell silent as two living legends coiled their wings, ready to take the sky for the last battle of the living. The first horn blast rolled across Winterfell like thunder. The second and the third followed, each deeper than the last, until the stones themselves seemed to tremble. Rhaegal tensed beneath Jon, muscles coiling. Drogon spread his wings, great membranes catching the torchlight. Snow whipped sideways as the storm thickened. The sky above was a black lid pressing down. Jon could barely see the far end of the courtyard now, but he could hear men shouting on the ramparts. The dead were close. "Now!" Daenerys cried, her voice carrying over the roar of the wind. Drogon leapt, a mountain suddenly animate, and the blast of air from his wings tore banners from their poles. Jon gripped the ridges along Rhaegal's spine, leaned forward, and the green dragon sprang after his brother. For a heartbeat, gravity yanked at him, Winterfell dropping away in a blur of stone and snow and staring faces. Then there was only sky. The storm swallowed them. Wind clawed at Jon's face, drove needles of ice into his eyes. Rhaegal's wings beat a relentless rhythm through the darkness, the motion rising up through Jon's bones. Drogon's silhouette flickered to his left, sometimes clear as a carving against the clouds, sometimes vanished entirely, only the echo of his roar proving he was still near. They burst through the lowest belly of the storm into a higher darkness, where the clouds thinned and the moon glimmered faintly through ragged veils. For a moment there was quiet. Jon's heart slammed against his ribs. "Dracarys!" Daenerys shouted. Drogon folded his wings and dove. Rhaegal followed without any command from Jon, as if the dragons shared a single thought. The wind screamed past Jon's ears as the ground rushed up. The front ranks of the dead, the frail line of Dothraki rocks far ahead, already losing their flame one by one as the first wave met them. Rhaegal opened his jaws and the world below turned green. Flame poured out, a river of emerald that washed over the dead in the front, turning White Walkers and whites alike into instant ash. Jon smelled burned flesh, heard the hideous cracking of ice-bound bones. The fire carved a trench through the ranks of the enemy, a glowing wound in the darkness, and for a heartbeat, the living forces on the walls shouted in wild, terrified triumph. The dead did not scream, they simply kept coming. The trench they melted became a gap, and more poured through it, climbing over charred bodies, indifferent to the ruin. Jon swallowed bile. "Again!" he yelled, though Rhaegal did not need the order. They soared along the line of the approaching army, Jon guiding as best he could, aiming the dragonfire to break apart clusters of White Walkers to slow the tide. He glimpsed, far off, giants of ice lumbering through the storm. The Night King was somewhere beyond them, hidden in white and wind. On the walls, tiny as ants from this height, Jon saw men pointing up, not only at Daenerys, the breaker of chains on her black-fanged monster, but at him. A man they had known as the Bastard of Winterfell, the king in the north, now astride a creature of legend. The sight would scorch itself into their memories more deeply than any fire he laid upon the dead. He felt the weight of their stares even up here in the storm. It made his fingers tighten on the scale ridges as if the dragon might throw him for the presumption. Rhaegal only beat his wings harder, roaring his defiance into the cold that tried to smother them. The trenches lit at last. From above, Jon saw the signal, Davos waving his flaming torch in desperate arcs, the first patches of fire sputtering and dying where the wind and snow smothered them. Drogon Devlo, a black spear, and his fire roared along the ring of oil-soaked pits, turning them into a jagged circle of flame. The night jumped from black to orange. Light slammed into Jon's eyes, revealing for the first time the true scale of the army pressing against them. Somewhere, amidst that sea of corpses and ice, the Night King watched them. Each pass they made bought the living minutes, no more. He aimed their next fall of fire at a knot of whites struggling to drag down a giant from beyond the wall. The dragon flame took them all, the monstrous corpse, the clawing dead around it, the others charging from the rear. They went up like kindling. The ground itself seemed to shudder. Arrows arced up from Winterfell's walls, most falling short, a few striking whites already in flame, pinning them like insects. Jon could make out shapes along the battlements. Brienne's broad, familiar figure, sword flashing. Jaime's golden hand glinting. The Hound's hulking shape near a torch's flare. For a heartbeat, his eyes snagged on a smaller figure moving quick as a dart. Arya, bow in hand, dark hair snapping in the wind as she loosed arrow after arrow. She looked up once. He could not be sure from this distance, but he imagined he saw her eyes narrow at the sight of him on Rhaegal, a Stark on a dragon. The absurdity of it might have made him laugh on any other night. A horn sounded again, higher and more urgent. Rhaegal jerked beneath him, not from the sound but from something else. A sharp, icy sting along his flank. Jon twisted. A spear of blue ice jutted from the dragon's side, smoking where it pierced the green scales. The wound was shallow compared to the size of the beast, but Rhaegal roared in fury and pain, his body lurching. "Easy!" Jon shouted, pressing low, fingers digging into the ridge. The dragon's muscles trembled under him, wings beating erratically for a few terrifying seconds before finding their rhythm again. Across the storm-dark sky, a shape moved, something huge and wrong, wings ragged, eyes glowing a baleful blue. Viserion. The undead dragon burst from the cloud bank with a scream that stripped the warmth from Jon's marrow. Ice fire poured from his ruined maw, a torrent of pale flame that froze the air it passed through, leaving a trail of glittering frost in the darkness. Drogon swerved away, barely avoiding the blast. Jon's heart slammed. The Night King was near. He could feel that cold presence like a knife slipping between his ribs. "Find him," Jon muttered. It was unclear whether he spoke to Rhaegal or to some other listening force. Either way, the green dragon answered. He turned his wounded flank away from the enemy and climbed, angling toward where the unnatural blue fire had come from. On the ground below, men looked up and saw Jon riding straight toward the undead dragon, toward the Night King himself. Some shouted his name. Others whispered it with a different sound now, a mixture of fear and wild, irrational hope. A man on a dragon challenging death in the sky. The storm swallowed them again as they climbed. Snow became a curtain, then a wall. Rhaegal's breathing thundered beneath Jon, each wing beat a labor. The spear of ice still jutted from his side, but the dragon seemed more enraged than crippled by it. Lightning flickered somewhere deep in the clouds, a distant, silent flash. For a moment, Jon saw the silhouette of Viserion there, wings torn, jaw half-hanging, ribs glowing with a cold blue light. And on his back, like a stain in the sky, the Night King. "Come on then," Jon growled. His fingers were numb around Longclaw's hilt where it jutted over his shoulder. He could not hope to reach the Night King from here, but rage did not listen to reason. It told him only that there was an enemy and that he had a sword. Viserion dived out of the clouds. The undead dragon's roar was a sound like frozen metal breaking. Blue fire gushed from his throat, a blizzard of death. Rhaegal rolled, barely evading the stream, ice fire licking along one wing. Where it touched, frost spread like a living thing, crackling and flaking away. Rhaegal screamed and answered with his own flame, a jet of green that met the blue in midair. The clash of dragon breaths turned the sky into a boiling, shifting wall of color, jade and ghostly azure wrestling in the darkness. Where they met, the air itself seemed to shatter. Shards of ice and sparks of emerald fire rained down on the battlefield, hissing as they struck the snow. Jon glimpsed the Night King through the chaos. The creature's armor glistened with rime, his pale hair unmoving in the wind, his spear of blue crystal cradled casually in one hand. There was no anger in his face, no urgency, only a faint mockery, as if this battle were a game he had already won. "Rhaegal!" Jon shouted, but the dragon needed no urging. He tucked his wings and lunged. They hit Viserion's side on. The impact was like striking a mountain. Jon's teeth snapped together hard enough to send sparks of pain through his jaw. For a heartbeat, he was weightless, then slammed back down as he clung to the ridges. Rhaegal's claws raked at Viserion's chest, tearing away chunks of blackened, frost-burned flesh that broke apart into powder as they fell. Viserion snapped at Rhaegal's neck, jaws closing inches from Jon's leg. The cold from that ruined maw was a physical thing. It stabbed through leather and wool and skin, making his bones ache. Rhaegal twisted, biting down on the other dragon's wing. There was no blood, only a spray of ice crystals. The torn membrane flapped uselessly. The Night King did not fall. He stood balanced as easily as if he were on still earth, spear arm drawing back. "Down!" Jon screamed, though he doubted the dragon understood the word itself. Rhaegal's instincts were faster than any order. He wrenched away, beating his wings in a desperate burst. The spear flew past where Jon's chest had been a heartbeat ago, vanishing into the clouds. Rhaegal's wounded side protested, another roar tearing from his throat. His descent became a tumble. The ground, a vague dark smear far below, rushed toward them. For a moment, Jon knew they were going to die. Not at the Night King's hand, not on the ground with a sword in his fist, but in the stupid, ignoble way of falling things. Rhaegal fought the spiral, muscles bunched, wings straining against the weight of gravity and the drag of the storm. Inch by inch, the tumble turned into a dive, and the dive into a gliding fall. They burst from the bottom of the cloud bank into a world of chaos. Flaming trenches broken by bodies, whites flooding toward the walls, giants battering at the gates. Behind them, somewhere in the clouds, Viserion screamed again. The sound was weaker. Jon dared to glance back. The undead dragon fell, wings shredded, blue flame coughing from his mouth in ragged bursts. He disappeared into the storm over the far side of Winterfell. They had not killed him, but they had hurt him. Rhaegal's breathing came in harsh gulps now, his sides heaving. Jon patted the warm scales, feeling the dragon's life thrumming under his palm. "Easy," he murmured. "Just a little more. Just hold together a little more." Below, the living still fought. Winterfell still stood. That was all that mattered. They hit the ground harder than Jon would have believed anything could hit and still live. Rhaegal's wings snapped forward at the last moment, turning a deadly plummet into a brutal skid. Snow exploded around them in a white wave. Jon's world became motion and cold, and the wrenching ache of his own body trying to tear free from itself. When the world settled, he was half buried in a drift, his vision full of gray and white and the heaving green flank of the dragon beside him. The air stank of scorched ice and torn earth. Rhaegal lay twisted, one wing half-folded beneath him, the other stretched awkwardly. The spear of blue ice jutted deeper now from his side, driven further in by the impact. He tried to rise, legs scrabbling, but his front right limb buckled. Jon spat snow, coughed, and forced himself to move. Every muscle screamed protest. His hands were numb, but they found the familiar hilt of Longclaw where it had miraculously stayed strapped across his back. He waded through the drift to Rhaegal's head. The dragon's eye rolled toward him, the emerald irises clouded with pain and fury. "You did well," Jon rasped, voice shredded. "You did more than anyone could ask." Rhaegal's breath washed over him, hot and harsh. For a mad heartbeat, Jon had the urge to pull the spear out, the instinct of a man who had seen too many comrades pierced by arrows. But this was no arrow. The ice twined with tendrils of cold that sank into the dragon's flesh. He remembered how long it had taken to kill the last wight he'd fought that carried that unnatural frost. Pull it, and he might shatter Rhaegal from within. "Stay," Jon said, which was absurd, speaking to a dragon as if to a hound. "Guard this ground. If you can still burn, burn whatever comes near." Rhaegal rumbled weakly, as if offended at the suggestion he might do otherwise. The sound of battle reminded Jon that the world did not pause for his choices. Screams, steel on steel, the hoarse shouts of men who knew they were losing. The dead were spilling around the edges of the broken trenches now, clambering over the charred and the fallen. Shapes moved through the storm toward them, bent, jerking, wrong. White. Jon turned, drawing Longclaw in a single motion. The Valyrian steel gleamed dully in the fitful light, the wolf's head pommel-heavy and reassuring in his grip. The first wight lunged out of the snow, half its face missing, jaw hanging askew. Jon met it with a smooth, practiced stroke, severing its neck cleanly. The body collapsed in a sprawl. The head rolled a few feet before coming to rest, mouth working soundlessly. "Come on, then," he muttered, stepping between the approaching dead and Rhaegal's wounded bulk. "You want me, you have to go through me." They came in twos and threes, then in a wave. Men and women, wildlings he thought he recognized, armor still bearing the colors of houses that had died at his call. Jon's breath turned to fire in his chest as he cut and cut and cut. Longclaw sheared through rotted bone and frozen sinew with the effortless hunger of old Valyria. He lost track of how many he dropped. 3, 10, 20? The world narrowed to the arc of his sword and the next enemy's reach. A wight in a black cloak grabbed his arm. Ghost slammed into it from the side, teeth finding its throat, shaking until the neck snapped. "Good lad," Jon panted, shoving another corpse aside with his shoulder. "Stay close." Rhaegal's head lifted behind him. The dragon's chest expanded, light building in his throat. When the next rank of wights surged forward, Rhaegal loosed a ragged curtain of fire. It was weaker than before, patchy and sputtering, but it was still dragon flame. The dead in front went down in an instant, charred skeletons collapsing into ash. For a moment there was space, enough for Jon to see the walls of Winterfell looming through the snow. Shapes fought along the battlements. He heard the clang of the hound's cursing roar, Brienne shouting orders, the shriek of the dead. Somewhere within, Bran waited in the Godswood. The Night King would be there soon. Jon felt it like a tug in his bones. He laid a hand briefly on Rhaegal's neck. "Rest." "Live," he said, as if his will alone could bind the dragon's wounds. "I'll finish it." Then he turned his back on the dragon and ran toward the castle, Ghost pacing him, the dead following in their wake. The gates of Winterfell loomed ahead, half splintered, jammed open by the bodies of dead giants and dead men alike. Jon squeezed through a gap between a fallen beam and a mound of corpses, the stink of rot and smoke assaulting him. Ghost slipped past more easily, squeezing under dangling arms. Inside the courtyard, chaos reigned. Whites boiled through every entryway, scrambling up onto the walls, pouring down from broken parapets. The Unsullied held where they could in tight, disciplined knots, spears punching holes through the dead, dragging them down in piles. Northern men fought in clusters, some back-to-back, some alone, hacking at whatever moved. Jon crashed into the fray like a thrown axe. Longclaw rose and fell, biting deep. A dead man in a stark cloak lunged at him with a spear. Jon sidestepped, took the blow along his shoulder, and hacked down, splitting the white from collarbone to sternum. Fell, still grasping the haft. He yanked himself free, ignoring the sting. His body had become a ledger of hurts he had no time to read. "King in the north!" someone shouted hoarsely. He risked a glance. Lyanna Mormont stood on the back of a toppled cart, small and furious, her face smeared with blood. She drove a dragonglass spear into the head of a white twice her size. 3 more swarmed her. Jon cut a path toward her, Ghost tearing into ankles and knees ahead of him. A wall of dead rose, interposing, and by the time he reached the cart, Lyanna was gone, her small body tangled beneath a giant's crushed bulk. He stared for a heartbeat, grief a brief, sharp flare, then forced himself away. There would be time for mourning if they won. If they lost, there would be no one left to mourn. "Jon!" Davos's voice cracked through the din. The Onion Knight appeared from a side passage, face streaked with soot, clutching a short sword that had clearly seen better days. He was breathing hard. "The dead are in the crypts," he rasped. "They broke through. Sansa and the others. Are they alive?" Jon demanded. "For now. Arya got some of them out. The hound's with her." Davos shook his head. "We can't hold much longer. The fires are dying." As if to prove his words, a gust of wind swept through the courtyard, driving snow and smoke. The flames in the braziers guttered. The burning trenches outside sputtered in the distance, their glow dimming. The cold deepened. Jon felt it like a presence, a blade laid flat along his spine. His breath froze in front of his face, crystallizing in the air. The dead slowed, not out of fear. They did not know the word, but as if listening. "He's here," Jon said. Davos did not ask who. His face tightened. "The Godswood." Jon nodded. "Get as many as you can to fall back. If we kill him, the rest fall. If we don't." He did not finish. There was no need to speak the end every man in Winterfell knew. He pushed on, forcing his way through a narrow side passage that led toward the inner ward. Ghost went ahead, snarling, scattering whites like leaves. The stone underfoot was slick with half-frozen blood. Somewhere above, a woman's scream cut off abruptly. Somewhere else, a man laughed hysterically until that, too, ended in a wet gurgle. The closer he drew to the Godswood, the stronger the cold became. It crept through his boots, numbed his fingers despite the sweat in his gloves. Even the dead seemed to move with more purpose here, drawn toward the same point. He saw Arya once, darting along a corridor overhead, face pale, braid whipping. Her eyes met his for a heartbeat. There was no time for words. She vanished into the shadows like a ghost. "Stay alive," Jon muttered, though she was already gone. He burst out into the open again at last, the back gate to the Godswood looming ahead, half-frosted, its iron hinges rimed with ice. The trees beyond were shrouded in a veil of white, and in that white, walking with the calm of a man strolling through his garden, came the Night King. The Godswood had become a world of frost. Every branch bore a thick coat of rime. The pond was a sheet of solid ice, its surface traced with spiderweb cracks that glinted faintly in the pale light. The heart tree loomed in the center, its face half obscured by hoarfrost, tears of frozen sap streaking its carved cheeks. Bran sat beneath it in his chair, eyes open and distant, breath barely misting the air. Theon and the last of his Ironborn formed a ragged half-circle around him. Most of the men Jon remembered from the earlier plan were gone. "I'm sorry," Theon said, voice breaking as he drew his bow. Jon did not have time to speak to him. The gate behind him groaned as more weight pressed against it, whites scrabbling at the iron. He shouldered his way through, Longclaw in hand, Ghost at his side. The Night King had already crossed half the distance between the gate and the heart tree. He moved with terrible grace, ski-thin, armor glittering with frost. For White Walkers paced at his back, each with a spear of pale crystal in their hands. Wherever their feet touched the ground, the snow seemed to die, the moisture in it snapping into something harder and darker than ice. The Ironborn loosed arrows tipped with dragonglass. One struck a walker, shattering him into 1,000 shards of brittle ice. The others turned their heads in eerie unison, regarding the threat, and lifted their spears. Spears flew. Men died. Theon ran forward, screaming defiance, his spear leveled. For a heartbeat, Jon thought, hoped, madness, bravery, something between them. The Night King caught the spear in one hand, almost lazily, and drove it through Theon's chest. The Ironborn fell at Bran's feet, blood painting the snow. Jon did not remember crossing the distance between them. One moment he watched Theon fall. The next he was running, boots slipping on ice, lungs burning. Ghost tore into a white that lurched toward Bran's chair. Jon's focus narrowed to the figure of the Night King, who turned to face him with the unhurried curiosity of a man greeting a stranger at a feast. "Come on," Jon snarled, raising Longclaw. The Night King lifted his hand. The dead around the Godswood twitched. Bodies that had only just fallen jerked to their feet. The forest itself shuddered as roots and branches cracked under the sudden weight of more corpses rising. Jon's path filled with whites, their eyes lit with that same terrible blue fire. He hacked at them, cursing, cutting down 1, 2, 3. For every one that fell, another took its place. A woman he thought he recognized. A serving girl from Winterfell's kitchens, her apron tattered, grabbed his arm. He cleaved her skull with a roar and pushed forward. Through gaps in the press, he saw the Night King approach Bran. The creature's head tilted slightly, like a man considering a painting. He reached for his spear. Jon screamed wordlessly. Fury and desperation turned into raw sound. He broke through the last rank of whites, Longclaw raised, and the air behind the Night King blurred. A small, dark shape flew out of the white like a thrown knife. Arya. She soared toward the Night King with her dagger outstretched, face a mask of focus. For a heartbeat, Jon saw her as he remembered her as a child, wooden sword in hand in the yard at Winterfell, refusing to yield, and as she was now, a woman made of shadows and sharp edges. The Night King turned. His hand closed around her throat, stopping her in midair. Jon's heart stopped. Time compressed into a single second. The world held its breath. Arya's eyes met Jon's over the Night King's shoulder. There was no fear in them, only fierce, stubborn refusal. She dropped the dagger. It fell, caught by her other hand, and drove upward into the Night King's chest. The sound was not a cry, not a scream, but a crack. The sudden, unbelievable breaking of something that had always seemed unbreakable. The Night King's body froze, fractured, exploded into a storm of shards. A wind rushed through the Godswood, not cold but somehow clean. The White Walkers shattered in the same instant. The whites crowded around Jon collapsed like puppets with their strings cut. For a long heartbeat, there was only silence. Jon stood panting in the sudden stillness, Longclaw dripping with blackened blood, eyes fixed on the place where the Night King had stood. Arya knelt in the snow, shoulders heaving, the dagger still clutched in her hand. Bran blinked and seemed, for the first time in hours, to truly see the world around him again. "It's over," Jon whispered. "No," Bran said quietly, voice carrying eerily clearly in the frozen grove. One war is over. Another is about to begin. The dawn that followed did not feel like morning. It felt like something dazed and fragile crawling out from under the weight of a nightmare. The sky was a pale, washed-out gray. Snowflakes drifted lazily down onto the field of Pyres outside Winterfell's walls, melting as they touched the rising heat of the flames. Smoke curled upward in slow, dark columns, smudging the horizon. Jon stood before the nearest row of pyres, the smell of burning wood and flesh thick in his lungs. Names marched through his mind like a second, heavier procession. Ed, Lyanna Mormont, Beric Dondarrion, Jorah Mormont, who lay now among the fallen, his sword across his chest. Men and women from houses great and small, wildlings who had crossed the world for a war that was never theirs. He had spoken over them as best he could, words stumbling as he tried to balance grief and gratitude, to lay weight on sacrifice without breaking the backs of the living with it. Now the speeches were done. Now there was only watching. To his left, Daenerys stood, her face streaked with tears that the heat dried almost as soon as they fell. Drogon loomed some distance behind her, head lowered, smoke curling from his nostrils as if he shared her mourning. Rhaegal lay farther off, wounded but alive, his flank bandaged as best the healers could contrive, his eye half closed. To Jon's right, Sansa, Arya, and Bran formed a stark line of their own, the last true children of Winterfell. Sansa's jaw was set, her grief turned inward, polished into resolve. Arya's gaze was unfocused, as if she still walked in the Godswood, dagger in hand. Bran watched the flames as if they were pages in a book he had already read. Beyond them, northern lords clustered in knots, their faces grim. Free folk stood with them, Tormund huge and unmistakable, one arm in a sling, laughter gone from his eyes for once. They all stole glances at the dragons. Not just at Drogon, the queen's terror of fire and wing, but at Rhaegal, at the green beast that had flown above them with Jon on his back, pouring flame on the dead. The whispers had started before the fires were lit. Jon could feel them now, like moths fluttering at the edges of his attention. He heard his name spoken with a different weight. Not only Jon Snow, not only king in the north. He wrote it, someone muttered nearby, not quietly enough, like he was born to it. Only Targaryens ride dragons, another voice replied. That's what they say. Maybe the old gods chose him. Maybe the dragons don't care about blood. Maybe, the first voice said skeptically, or maybe we've not been told everything. Starks have hid things before. Sansa's hand tightened on the edge of her cloak. Jon saw the motion from the corner of his eye. Her gaze flicked toward him, cool and measuring. Davos stepped closer, speaking low so only Jon could hear. They're talking, lad. You know what about? Jon kept his eyes on the flames. I can guess. You've been different since that night in the crypts, Davos said. More than just the weight of command. I've seen men carry secrets like they were packs too heavy for one back. You've got that look. Jon said nothing. The fire crackled, sending up a shower of sparks that drifted toward the gray sky. I'm not your father, Davos went on gently, or your maester. But I followed enough kings to know when truth kept too long turned sour. The North respects you now more than ever. The free folk follow you because you brought them through the wall and stood with them. They saw you on that dragon, and they're terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Whatever you are, they need to hear it from you, not from whispers. Jon's throat felt tight. If I tell them, he said, I'll break everything we built. The North bled for its freedom from southern kings. If they hear I have a better claim than Daenerys. Claim, Davos said. The word sat plainer than any title. Is that what you're worried about? Or is it that you think you don't deserve it? He did not have an answer ready. He barely knew the shape of this new self he had been handed. Aegon, Rhaegar's son, Lyanna's boy. The words did not fit in his own mouth. Across the field, Daenerys moved among the pyres, saying farewells to those who had died for her war and the world's. When she paused near Yora's bier, her shoulders shook once violently before she mastered herself. Her eyes lifted, as if pulled to find Jon's. For a moment, they looked at one another across the sea of flame and ashen loss. There was love there, still. He could feel it like a wound that refused to close. But beneath it now lay something harder. A question that had grown since Sam's confession. Since his admission in the crypt. That you are the last male Targaryen. That your claim is better than hers. He looked away first. I need to speak to them, Jon said at last, voice hoarse. To her. To all of them. Davos nodded. Then best do it before another war gives you an excuse to wait. The great hall of Winterfell had never felt so full. Every bench was occupied. Lords from ancient houses sat shoulder to shoulder with free folk chieftains, with knights of the Vale, with men of no name who had somehow lived through the long night. The Unsullied stood in disciplined ranks along the walls, their spears forming a silent, watchful forest. At the far end of the hall, the raised dais held two chairs, one the high seat of Winterfell, one brought in for Daenerys. Banners hung limp above them all. The direwolf of Stark, the dragon of Targaryen, the kraken of Greyjoy, the sun and spear of Martell, the lion of Lannister, faded and scorched from the recent fires. The hall smelled of smoke and sweat and broth, the sense of a people clinging to the familiar after too much horror. Jon stood in the center of the room, feeling their eyes on him. He wore no crown. The furs on his shoulders were those of the north, plain and thick, snow still melting at the edges. Longclaw hung at his hip. His hands were empty. At his back, slightly to the right, stood Sansa, Arya, and Bran. To his left, further back, Daenerys sat, Missandei at her shoulder, Grey Worm to one side. Tyrion lingered near a pillar, his cup untouched in his hand, watching everything with keen, troubled eyes. Varys stood in the shadows, his expression unreadable. Jon cleared his throat. The murmur of voices died. "We lived," he began. His voice sounded low even to his own ears. It rose as he went on, gathering strength from the fact of the people before him. "When the dead came, you stood. Northmen, free folk, knights of the south, unsullied from across the sea. You all fought and bled here. You faced the end of the world, and you did not run." A rumble of agreement moved through the hall. It was not joy, it was something like weary pride. "We lost many," Jon went on. "Friends, family, people who had no reason to die for us and did anyway. We will carry their memory with us, in whatever comes next." He saw Yora's empty place at Daenerys' side. He thought of Ed's body on the pyre. He thought of the girl with the arrow in her chest lying under the giant's hand. He let the weight of them steady him. "But what comes next," he said, "will be shaped by more than grief and gratitude. It will be shaped by truth. And there is a truth I've carried these last days that doesn't belong only to me." A ripple moved through the crowd, sharper this time. Sansa's shoulders tensed behind him. Arya's hand hovered near the hilt of the dagger at her belt. Bran sat very still. Daenerys leaned forward slightly. The torchlight caught the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. Jon swallowed. His mouth felt dry as dust. "Some of you saw me ride Rhaegal," he said. "You've heard the stories, only Targaryens rode dragons in the old days. You've wondered what it means that a man of the north could mount one and live." He forced himself to meet their eyes, one group at a time. Tormund's puzzled, wary stare. Lyanna Mormont's uncle glowering. Davos watching with quiet concern. "It means," Jon said, "that I am not only of the north." A murmur, louder now. "In the crypt," he continued, "my brother Bran and Samwell Tarly told me what they'd learned in their own ways. They told me that my father was not Eddard Stark. That my mother was not some nameless girl he dishonored." His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. He felt the old loyalty tear and bleed as he said the words. "They told me that I am the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen." The hall exploded. Shouts, curses, prayers. Men surged to their feet. Someone knocked over a bench. It crashed against the stones. "Lies!" a northern lord bellowed. Targaryen trickery, another shouted. He rode the dragon. You saw it. The free folk roared in confusion. Above it all, Drogon's distant rumble echoed faintly from the yard, as if the dragon himself sensed the upheaval. Enough! Sansa's voice cut through the noise, sharp as an icicle. She stepped forward. Let him finish. Daenerys rose from her chair. Her face was pale, eyes wide. Jon, she said, her voice carrying despite its softness. Is this what you told me in the crypt? That you are Aegon Targaryen? The name hung in the air like a drawn blade. Jon nodded. There was no point in stepping back now. That's the name they gave me at my birth, he said. Aegon Targaryen. But it was Jon Snow who fought for the Night's Watch and died for it. Jon Snow who bent the knee to the Queen and brought the North and the free folk to this battle. Whatever blood runs in my veins doesn't change the choices I've made. It changes what you are, a lord muttered. It changes what you could claim. Jon looked at the faces around him. The fear, the hope, the anger. He looked at Daenerys, the woman who had walked through fire and chains and lost to stand here now. So close and yet suddenly so far. I didn't ask for this, he said. I never wanted crowns or thrones. I still don't. But I will not hide what I am while you all whisper and wonder. I am Lyanna Stark's son. I am Rhaegar Targaryen's son. I am of the North and of the dragon. I will not pretend otherwise. He drew a breath, steadying himself against the weight of his next words. But hear me now, all of you. I bent the knee to Daenerys Targaryen because I believed she was our best hope against the dead and against the tyrants who sit on thrones made of other men's bones. That has not changed. Whatever claim some old law says I have, I will not raise it against her. Not while Cersei Lannister sits on the Iron Throne. Not while the realm bleeds. The hall quieted, slowly. The roar of voices dwindled to harsh breathing, muttered oaths. What I ask of you, Jon said, is simple and hard. Hold your oaths. Stand with the woman who brought dragons and armies across the world to fight for you, and with the man you have followed through snow and fire. Let us finish this war against the deads. Queen in King's Landing. After that, he hesitated, then chose the only ground that felt honest. After that, we will find a way together to shape what comes next. Not just by blood, but by what is best for the living. He let his gaze rest, for a heartbeat, on each of the three who mattered most. Sansa, whose eyes were cool and calculating. Arya, whose face betrayed little but whose jaw was set in a way that meant she had already chosen. Daenerys, whose expression was a storm of wounded pride, dawning fear, and something like fragile, stubborn hope. Bran watched with the calm of someone who had seen this moment 100 times and knew it could still turn a dozen different ways. The hall held its breath. Jon stood in the center of it all, a man balanced between two names, two worlds, feeling the rough pull of both and knowing there was no path forward that did not lead through fire. When the shouting in the hall finally broke into smaller, uglier arguments, and the lords began to gather in their own corners to hiss counsel into one another's ears, Jon slipped away. He felt their eyes follow him, some accusing, some imploring, some too many with naked calculation. The air of the great hall was thick with smoke and the sour tang of fear. Every breath he took seemed to scrape his throat raw. Jon! Her voice stopped him before he reached the doors. Daenerys stood at the base of the dais, half-turned so the dragon banner behind her billowed like a dark wing at her shoulder. Missandei lingered a pace behind, Grey Worm at her side, both wisely silent. Torchlight painted shifting gold across the queen's cheeks, catching on the wet shine at the corner of one eye before she blinked it away. He had seen her in battle on Drogon's back, wreathed in fire. He had seen her walking from a pyre in nothing but ash and newborn dragons. This was the first time he had seen her look small. "Your Grace," he said, because formality was easier than the knot in his chest. "Come with me," she replied, already turning toward a side door. "Now." He followed. Missandei and Grey Worm remained behind, holding the hall with their presence. The door shut on a swell of voices. cutting the noise down to a muffled roar. Jon found himself in a narrow stone passage smelling of dust and cold air, the sounds of the castle's older pulse. Distant footsteps, a child crying somewhere far away, ghosting through the walls. Daenerys walked only a little way before she stopped in a shallow alcove. An old arrow slit at her back, letting in a line of night so thin it barely qualified as light. She turned and looked at him, and for a heartbeat he saw not a queen, not a dragon lord, but a woman who had been given everything and had it torn from her hands again and again. "Aegon," she said. He flinched. "Don't call me that. It's your name." Her voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her. The fingers of her left hand pinched the fabric of her sleeve, twisting it slowly. "My brother's son. My nephew. I never knew him," Jon said. "And I never knew this name. I am Jon Snow. If I live another 100 years, that's the man I'll have been." "You told them the same thing you told me," she went on, as if he hadn't spoken. "You don't want the throne. You don't want my crown. You bent the knee because you believed in me." "I still do," he said quickly. "Cersei." "This isn't about Cersei," Daenerys snapped. The word cracked down the passage like a whip. Jon fell silent. She drew a breath, forcing her voice back under control. "Do you know what I heard, sitting there behind you?" she asked. "What they whispered when you said Rhaegar's name. They said king, not bastard, not Snow. King. They are already weighing you against me in their minds. Your sisters, my hand, that bald spider in the shadows. They're all asking themselves the same question. Which one of us should sit on the Iron Throne? I won't let them put me there in your place," Jon said. "How will you stop them?" she asked softly. "Will you kill them all?" Her lips quirked, not quite into a smile. "That's what they think I will do, you know, that I'm my father's daughter, that all it will take is one betrayal, one disappointment, and I will burn them all." His stomach turned. "You're not your father, am I not?" She murmured. "I have burned men alive. I have crucified slavers. I have fed traitors to my children. I tell myself there was justice in each death, that the world is better for their ashes. But the songs they sing of me in Westeros will not be gentle ones. Madness is an easy word to hang on a foreign queen with dragons." Her eyes shone, and for once there was no iron in them at all, only raw, wounded terror. "Now they have you," she whispered. "A man they know. A man they have already followed into death and back. A man who rode a dragon and is still of this soil. The North will never love me like they love you. How long before they decide they don't need me, Jon? How long before someone puts a knife in my back and says they did it for you? If anyone tries," Jon said hoarsely, "I'll kill them myself." She stared at him a long moment, searching his face as if trying to see through to the bone. "Swear to me," she said. "Swear on whatever gods you believe in, that you will never seek the throne, that you will never accept it, no matter who begs you." "I don't want it," he said. "That's not what I asked." Her fingers twisted tighter in her sleeve. "Swear it." He thought of Bran's distant gaze, of Sam's shaking hands clutching old parchment. He thought of Sansa's calculating eyes, of Tyrion's wary intelligence, of Varys's unreadable face in the dark. He thought of all the mouths that could speak his name in ways he did not control. "I swear," Jon said, "on the old gods and the new, I will never seek the throne. And if the lords choose you," she pressed, "if they put a crown on your head while you sleep, then I'll throw it back at them," he said, "or give it to you." The words were as much a promise to himself as to her. Daenerys closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, something in her had hardened. "Then we go south," she said. "Together, we break Cersei and take the city. We show them that dragon and wolf are one." She stepped past him, closer than she needed to be, the heat of her body brushing his. "But remember, Jon Snow," she added quietly, so near that her breath warmed his ear. "The throne is not the only thing people can use you for. Be careful whose counsel you listen to." Some men will gladly burn the queen if it leaves you standing in the ashes." Then she was gone, moving back toward the hall, toward the noise and the eyes and the simmering fear. Jon remained in the alcove, the cold stone at his back, the heat of her warning lingering on his skin, feeling more like a man trapped between two fires than ever before. The wind on the battlements bit more sharply than any word spoken in the hall. Sansa stood with her gloved hands resting lightly on the rough stone, her gaze fixed somewhere far beyond the dark line of the trees, beyond the hills and rivers and ruins that lay between Winterfell and the capital. Frost formed on the loose strands of hair that had escaped her braids. The cold did not seem to touch her. "You know," Tyrion said conversationally beside her, "when I imagined marrying a Stark girl, I always thought the setting would be a little warmer." She did not smile. "You imagine many things that never come to pass, Lord Tyrion." He took a sip from his cup. Wine had been harder to come by since the battle. The cellars had burned in too many keeps, the roads were treacherous, but he had coaxed a surprisingly drinkable bottle from somewhere. "That's the tragedy of having an imagination," he said. "Reality rarely measures up. Tonight is an exception, though." That was quite the speech. "It had to be done," Sansa said. "Did it?" He glanced sidelong at her. "You could have counseled him to keep his secret, to let the rumors stew while we march south. Cersei is quite good at sowing doubts without any help from us." "If we had done that," Sansa said, "someone else would have spoken first, someone less honest than Jon. Truth's like a seed under snow, Lord Tyrion. It doesn't die just because you bury it. It waits, and when it breaks the surface, it's stronger for having fought its way up." "And now," Tyrion asked, "what has grown?" Sansa's eyes tracked a distant motion in the yard. Rhaegal shifted his weight, bandaged flank rising and falling slowly. Drogon lay curled behind him, a watchful mound of shadow and scale. Jon was a smaller shape near the green dragon's head, Ghost a pale patch at his side. "Now," she said, "they see him as he truly is. So does she." "You don't trust Daenerys," Tyrion observed. It was not a question. "I trust what I've seen," Sansa said. "Men and women who followed her across the sea because she promised them something better, and now they're here in our home. 2 dragons that could burn a city to ash in an afternoon. A queen who talks about breaking the wheel, but does not understand that every spoke is a house with its own pride and scars." Tyrion's mouth twisted. She freed thousands who thought they would die in chains. She broke cities that had stood untouched for generations. That sort of thing does not foster modesty. "She is not modest," Sansa said, "and she is not of Westeros. She does not understand us. She sees the North as another set of chains to break, not as a people who have broken enough." "Jon believes in her," Tyrion said, "more than he believes in himself." "He believes in the idea of her," Sansa corrected. "The same way he believed in the Night's Watch, in vows and honor and duty. The world killed that belief and he rose from the dead still clinging to it. It's one of the things I love about him." Her fingers curled briefly atop the stone. "It will also get him killed if we let it." Tyrion studied her profile. The little bird he had married in King's Landing was gone. In her place stood a woman who had learned at the feet of monsters, who had been burned and frozen and battered into something sharp and cold. "You want him to be king," he said quietly. She did not look at him. "I want the North to be safe. With Cersei on the throne, we are not. With Daenerys on the throne, we may not be. With Jon," she hesitated. "He is one of us, no matter what name Bran gives him. He has bled for this land. He died for it. If we must bend the knee to anyone, better it be a man who knows what winter feels like, not a dragon queen who sees snow as an inconvenience." "And if Jon meant what he said?" Tyrion asked. "If he truly refuses the crown? Then the realm will decide for him," Sansa said. "One way or another. If Daenerys proves herself a just ruler, perhaps they never look his way. If she doesn't..." Her breath fogged in the air. "Westeros will need another choice." Tyrion took another sip of wine, though it tasted suddenly sour. "You're playing a dangerous game, Lady Stark." "I'm tired of other people playing it for me," Sansa replied. "Littlefinger, Cersei, Ramsay, they all made choices and my family paid the price. This time, if there must be a game, I'll have a hand on the board." She turned then and met his eyes, her own cool and intent. "You swore to serve Daenerys," she said. "You also swore once to protect me. I won't ask you to betray her. But I will ask you this: watch her. Watch him. If you see either one walking toward madness, tell me. I may not be able to stop them, but I won't stand blind while another queen burns my home." Tyrion considered her for a long moment. A dragon roared faintly in the distance, a low, restless sound. "In another life," he said, half to himself, "we might have made a formidable ruling couple. In this life," Sansa said, "we might still make formidable allies." He raised his cup in a dry salute. To formidable allies, then. They drank under the pale stars while, below them, the dragons curled around their wounded, and the man who was both wolf and dragon chose not to look up at the sky he had flown through, because it reminded him too much of how far he might yet fall. The table in the old map room bore new scars. Burn marks from a candle knocked askew during the battle. A long groove where some desperate soul had used it as a chopping block. Dried blood at one corner turned almost black. The carved rivers and mountains of Westeros lay beneath it all, unchanged and indifferent. Jon rested his hands on the edge of the wood, knuckles whitening. King's Landing sat at the far end, that familiar sprawl of carved towers and walls, a single nameless piece representing the Iron Throne. Beside it, like a pair of wolves closing on a stag, stood two tokens carved in haste. One a three-headed dragon, the other a dire wolf with wings etched along its back. "We don't have the luxury of time," Daenerys said, her fingers tracing the coastline between Dragonstone and the capital. "The dead are gone, but winter remains. Stores are low. Armies are tired. If we give Cersei months to recover, she will grow stronger as we grow weaker." "She's stronger already," Tyrion said. "The Golden Company is fresh. Her forces are rested and well-fed behind city walls. The Iron Fleet controls Blackwater Bay. We will be sailing into a hornet's nest." "Then we break the nest," Grey Worm said, his voice flat. "With what?" Davos asked. "We lost half our men, if not more. The Dothraki are shadows of what they once were. The North bled in those trenches. The free folk aren't soldiers for siege wars. We have dragons, aye, and that's no small thing. But dragons alone won't hold a city once it falls. Dragonfire will open the way," Daenerys said. "The Unsullied will take the gates. Once Cersei is dead, the rest will fall into line. Provided we don't turn the city into a pyre first," Sansa murmured. All eyes flicked to her. She did not flinch from Daenerys's gaze. "The people of King's Landing didn't choose Cersei," Sansa said. "They didn't choose Joffrey, or the Mad King. They'll not have chosen you either. But they will remember whoever burns their homes and children to ash, whether she calls herself liberator or tyrant." "You speak as if Cersei will give me a choice," Daenerys said, steel entering her tone. "She used wildfire on her own September. She armed fanatics and set them loose on her own streets. She will turn those people into shields if it keeps herself on the throne. Do you know what happens when you hesitate before a shield wall on the battlefield, Lady Stark? Your enemy pushes and you break." "We're not talking about shields," Jon said quietly. "We're talking about mothers and children." Daenerys looked at him sharply. "You would ask me to risk losing this war for the sake of people who spat on your name when you went south? Who cheered when Ned Stark died and went back to their lives the next day?" "That's the point," Jon said. "They went back to their lives. They're not soldiers. They're not queens or kings. They're just people. We fought the dead for them as much as for anyone. If we kill them by the thousands to get to Cersei, what was the point?" Silence stretched. The candle flames flickered, warping the shadows across their faces. "Then what do you propose?" Daenerys asked. He leaned over the table, pointing to the spaces between carved rivers and roads. "We still have the element of fear on our side," he said. "You and the dragons broke the dead. I rode with you. Stories are already running ahead of us. We use that. We send envoys, myself among them, to demand Cersei's surrender. We show the people that there is another way, that the war can end without the city burning." "She will refuse," Grey Worm said. "Of course she will," Jon said. "She's Cersei Lannister. But if we make the offer in front of the city, if we show the people that their queen chose fire over mercy, we weaken her hold. When the walls start to fall, they'll be more likely to break, to open gates, to throw down arms. Every man who does that is one less we have to cut down and one fewer civilian trampled underfoot." Tyrion nodded slowly. "A show of strength and restraint," he mused. "The dragon prince who rode into the storm to fight the dead, now offering peace to the living. The optics are compelling." "Optics?" Arya repeated under her breath, unimpressed. Daenerys's gaze moved from Jon to the map and back again. "You would fly to the walls unguarded?" she asked. "You already fell from the sky once. Rhaegal still bears the scars." "I won't be unguarded," Jon said. "I'll have Rhaegal, and I'll have every eye in that city on me and on you. If Cersei tries to kill me under a flag of Parley, it will make her look as mad as your father ever was. Even she must know that." "Oh, she knows," Tyrion said. "She may not care." "If she doesn't care," Jon said, "then we'll know exactly what we're dealing with, and so will everyone else." Daenerys's fingers tapped once on the table, a soft, restless rhythm. Drogon's shadow passed briefly across the narrow window, like a reminder that whatever they chose here would be written in fire soon enough. "At Dragonstone," she said at last, "we regather what strength we have there. We sail as one force, north and south together. When we reach King's Landing, you will have your parley, Jon Snow. You will stand before the gates and offer Cersei life. When she refuses, and she will, no one will doubt that what follows is of her making." "And the city?" Sansa pressed. "The people? We will do what we can to spare them," Daenerys said. "Target the Red Keep, the Scorpions, the Iron Fleet. Open the way for the armies rather than burning every street. I cannot promise there will be no fire." Her eyes were hard now, fixed on the little lion piece Tyrion had nudged toward King's Landing as a stand-in for Cersei. "But I can promise that I will not be blind in my rage." It was not the guarantee Sansa wanted. It was not nothing either. "Then it's settled," Davos said. "We lick our wounds on Dragonstone and pray the Seven, and whatever gods lurk beyond them, that He sea is kinder to us than the snow." Varys, who had been quiet until now, spoke at last. "And when the war is done?" he asked. "When the lion is dead and the throne stands empty save for whoever sits on it?" Daenerys's gaze sharpened. Jon felt all eyes slide his way again. "Then," he said before anyone else could speak, "we do what I promised. We call a council. We speak for the living, not the dead. And we decide what kind of world we want, instead of letting old names and old wounds decide it for us." "Spoken like a man who has one name too many already," Tyrion murmured. Jon ignored him. His fingers tightened on the edge of the map, knuckles white. In his mind's eye, he saw the city burning. He saw dragonfire licking up the sides of the Red Keep. He saw himself, standing in the middle of it all, trying to hold wolf and dragon together while the world tried to tear them apart. The sea wind had a different bite than northern air. It tasted of salt and old storms, of distant lands and deeper, colder things moving far below the surface. Jon had never been at ease on ships. The rolling, unnatural motion of wood underfoot had always put him in mind of bad dreams. Now, flying above the fleet, he was less aware of the water's rise and fall, but more aware of how small the ships looked, tiny flecks of wood and canvas bobbing on a slate-gray expanse. Rhaegal's wings beat a steady rhythm. The healed but not forgotten wound in his side, pulling a little with each stroke. The dragon's breath steamed in the cold air. Jon felt the motion in his thighs and spine, the powerful flex and release. Each day of the journey south, it had become more familiar. Not the wild terror of the first time he'd mounted a dragon, but something closer to partnership. Below, the fleet stretched in a ragged line. Captured northern ships, a scattering of battered ironborn vessels pledged to Yara, and the sleeker, more numerous craft Daenerys had brought with her. Unsullied stood like statues on their decks, while northern soldiers crowded the rails, craning their necks whenever the shadow of dragon wings passed overhead. Drogon flew a little ahead and to the right, his larger form cutting through the clouds with predatory efficiency. Daenerys sat on his back with the ease of long practice, her pale hair streaming behind her like a banner. Now and then, she would glance back, and Jon would raise a hand, a small, wordless acknowledgement that they were both still there. Tormund liked to wave too, when he thought Jon was looking, arms flailing so wildly that more than one sailor had to grab him to keep him from pitching overboard. The Free Folk leader had shouted up at him on the first day, voice barely carrying over the wind. "You're getting too pretty up there, Crow. Next you'll be wearing a golden crown and asking us to kiss your dragon's arse." It had been almost a relief. The further south they flew, the less the air bit, the more the sun managed to push feeble warmth through the clouds. Thin sheets of ice gave way to open water. Seabirds appeared, wheeling and crying, unbothered by the war passing beneath their wings. "Not long now," Davos had said that morning aboard the flagship, Tombstone grin half-hearted. "We'll see Dragonstone by dusk, if the winds are kind." From above, Jon saw it before any lookout called the sight. The island rose from the sea like some primordial beast, black stone cliffs rearing up against the sky. The castle perched atop them was all sharp angles and jutting parapets, a crown of carved dragons snarling at the horizon. Smoke curled from vents in the rock where ancient volcanic veins still bled heat into the world. Rhaegal rumbled as they approached, something like recognition in the sound. Jon wondered if the dragon remembered this place from dreams, from some deeper tie to the blood and fire that had made his kind. Or perhaps he simply smelled the other dragons that had roosted here before him, ghosts of Balerion and Meraxes and Vhagar curling through the stone. They circled once, shadows racing along the cliffs. Men on the ships shaded their eyes, staring. On the highest tower, a bell rang slowly, the deep note rolling out across the water. "Home," Daenerys murmured when Drogon drew level for a moment. Her voice snatched by the wind, but the word clear on her lips nonetheless. Jon did not know whether she meant Dragonstone or the land that lay beyond it. He wasn't sure it mattered. For her, for him, for all of them, there would be no true home until the throne in King's Landing was decided, one way or another. Rhaegal angled his wings and dropped toward the wide, flat expanse of rock that served as a landing ground. Drogon followed, folding his vast wings at the last second to slam down in a controlled crash that sent cracks spidering through stone already worn by centuries of dragon talons. Jon slid from Rhaegal's back, boots striking the rock with a jolt that went up his spine. The dragon's flank rose and fell behind him, hot and solid. He laid a hand on the warm scales, grateful for the contact. "Thank you," he murmured. Rhaegal snorted, a puff of steam gusting from his nostrils, as if to say that he had merely done what any sensible creature would do when given the chance to stretch his wings over open sea. Ships began to dock. Ropes flew, anchors dropped. Men shouted and cursed and laughed in that brittle way soldiers did when any land, was finally under their feet again. The air filled with new smells: tar, fish, the faint sour reek of old guano on the rocks. Jon watched as the first gangplanks slammed into place and soldiers began to disembark. North met south in a confusion of accents and armor, all moving inexorably toward the same looming bulk of stone. Dragonstone waited. King's Landing waited beyond it. And somewhere between those two places, Jon knew, lay the moment when he would either keep his promise to Daenerys, or discover that promises, like old castles and old names, could crumble under enough pressure. Dragonstone's stones remembered dragons. That was the thought that drifted through Tyrion's head as he walked the ramparts with Varys, the wind clawing at his cloak. The walls seemed to hum faintly underfoot, as if some echo of old roars still vibrated in the rock. Or perhaps that was only his nerves, jangling like strings pulled too taut. Your face grows longer every day, Varys observed mildly. Soon we will not be able to distinguish you from a particularly solemn potato. Tyrion snorted despite himself. I'll remind you that some potatoes have done great service to the realm, he said. Boiled, mashed, occasionally thrown at monarchs. Just so, Varys said. His hands were tucked into the wide sleeves of his robe. As ever, his face was smooth, unreadable. Only the way his eyes lingered on the dragons circling far above betrayed unease. And yet you look less like you are planning a culinary coup, and more as though you have swallowed something that will not sit. I've swallowed many things that won't sit over the years, Tyrion said. My father's contempt, my sister's schemes. Now, apparently, a potential heir with a better claim to the throne than my queen. Ah, Varys said softly. So we speak of him openly now. We do nothing openly, Tyrion said. We're walking on a wall in the wind where no one can hear us. If that isn't secrecy, I don't know what is. Secrecy is a habit, Varys said. Truth is a necessity. We downplay the latter too often in our profession. Tyrion rested his hands on the cold stone, peering down at the crashing waves far below. You heard what he said in Winterfell, he said. He swore he would not seek the throne. And do you believe him? Varys asked. Yes, Tyrion said without hesitation. That is the problem. Men who do not want power are often best suited to wield it, Varys murmured. So we tell ourselves, at least. It makes us feel better about choosing them. Is that what we're doing? Tyrion asked. Choosing? Varys's gaze slid toward him. You are her hand, he said. I am her spymaster. Our duty is to the realm. If we believe she will rule well, we support her. If we believe she will not, he let the sentence trail off. The wind filled the gap, whistling in the arrow slits. You think she won't, Tyrion said quietly. I think she is a woman under more strain than any person should be asked to bear, Varys said. I think she has lost advisors she trusted and men she loved. I think she has crossed an ocean to claim a land that fears her, with only her dragons and her faith in herself left unshaken. Such people can do great things. They can also do terrible ones. And Jon, Tyrion pressed. Jon Snow, Varys said, tasting the name. A man who has already died once for his people, who rode a dragon into the sky to face death and did not fall, who declared his lineage in a hall full of wolves and dragons and chose, publicly, not to use it against his queen. He paused. I have served many kings, my friend. Few would have done that. He also knows nothing, Tyrion said reflexively. Perhaps, Varys said, but he knows enough to be troubled by his own ignorance. That is rarer than you might think. A silence stretched between them, filled with the rhythmic crash of waves and the distant, bone-deep thrum of dragon wings. I will not be party to treason, Tyrion said at last. I won't help you pull her down. I have not asked you to, Varys said. Yet, Tyrion's jaw tightened. You speak as if the decision is already made. Not by me, Varys said. By her. By what she does when we reach King's Landing. If she keeps her promises to spare innocents where she can, to restrain herself, to break the wheel rather than simply setting her own sigil atop it, then I will serve her faithfully until the day I die. If she does not, he exhaled slowly. I am not sentimental, Tyrion. I love the people. They have no voice but ours. If she turns her fire on them, I will not pretend loyalty to ease my conscience. And if you decide Jon would be better? Tyrion asked. What then? Another rebellion? Another river of blood in the streets? You think the realm will survive another war of succession? I think it may not survive the wrong ruler on the throne, Varys said. They walked in silence for a time. Above them, one of the dragons wheeled and stooped, catching some unseen current, its body a dark slash against the whitening sky. I will do everything in my power to keep her from that wrong, Tyrion said at last. I owe her that. She believed in me when no one else in Essos did. When no one in Westeros ever had. I know, Varys said gently, and I do not ask you to stop. I only ask you to look, truly look, at her, at him, at what this war will make of both. When the time comes to choose, and it will, close your eyes if you must, but do not lie to yourself about what you see behind them. Tyrion said nothing. His hand tightened on the stone until his knuckles ached. Somewhere on the island, Jon Snow was likely at the dragon's side, or in some cold chamber with his sisters and his ghosts, trying to square his vows with the blood in his veins. The hand of the queen stared out at the sea and wondered which of his monarchs would kill him first, if he guessed wrong. The room they had given Jon in Dragonstone was small by princely standards. A narrow bed, a heavy wooden chest, a table scarred by old cuts and burns. Dragon carvings writhed along the walls, black stone beasts frozen in snarls and coils, their eyes set with bits of red glass that caught the firelight and seemed to watch him when he moved. He preferred it to the grander chambers Daenerys used. There was less space for ghosts here. Tonight, the table was all but invisible under the map of King's Landing someone had laid out. A newer, more detailed cousin to the carved map in Winterfell. Towers and gates and streets formed a dense maze. Little wooden markers, dragons, shields, ships, clustered around it like children's toys after a battle of their own. Davos sat on a stool, elbows on his knees, peering at the inked lines with the focused frown of a man trying to calculate odds in a game he didn't wish to play. Tormund had shoved a trunk against the wall and planted himself on it, legs spread, a horn of something strong and questionable in his hand. "So that's where the mad bitch sits," Tormund said, jabbing a thumb at the tiny representation of the Red Keep. "Queen Cersei," Davos corrected automatically, though his tone lacked conviction. "She's not a queen," Tormund said. "Queens fight the dead. Queens bring their people through the storm. She's just a woman on a chair who killed a lot of folk." Jon's mouth twitched despite his mood. "The folk she killed would probably agree with you." Tormund took a swig. "So what's the plan? You fly up to her window on your lizard and knock? 'Hello, pretty lion. Mind giving us the sharp seat before we burn your house down?' Something like that," Jon said dryly. "Less knocking." Davos traced a finger along the outer walls of the capital. "There are scorpions on the ramparts now," he said. "Qyburn's toys. We saw what one of them did to your dragon in the north. They'll have more here, better placed." "Rhaegal's tougher now," Tormund grunted. "He survived the dead, survived falling out of the sky. Those toys won't stop him." "They might," Davos said. "Or they might cripple him, or kill him. If Rhaegal falls into the city, he'll flatten half a district. If Drogon falls, it'll be worse." Jon rubbed his thumb along the edge of Longclaw's pommel. "We're not flying into a scorpion's mouth if we can help it," he said. "Daenerys will take Drogon high and come in from angles they're not expecting. I'll keep to the flanks. Use Rhaegal's fire where we see concentrations of soldiers, not streets full of small folk." "And the talking?" Tormund asked. "You really going to land in front of her walls and ask nicely? That doesn't sound like you, Crow. You're more steal a dead man's cloak and stab his leader through the heart, from what I've seen." "That was different," Jon said. Tormund shrugged. "Dead man, mad queen. All the same in the snow." "It isn't," Jon said. "Or it can't be. We fought the dead because they wanted to kill everything. The living," he gestured at the map, "they still have choices. I have to give them a chance to make the right ones, even if they don't take it." Davos nodded slowly. "You stand before those walls with a dragon at your back, offer terms, and everyone from the poorest shit sweeper to the fattest merchant sees you give Cersei a way out," he said. "When she spits in your face, it'll be on her, not on you." Tormund snorted. "What if she doesn't spit? What if she offers you her bed and the sharp chair both? Half of these southern folk already calling you prince. You like that Aegon shit enough to try it on?" Jon stiffened. "No." Tormund's grin faded. "I know," he said more quietly, "but you should think about it. not taking it. The weight of it. I've seen men break under less. You keep saying you don't want it, but the world might not listen. Jon stared at the tiny lion carved on the red keep. I made a promise, he said, to Daenerys, to myself. I broke my vows once when I left the Night's Watch to fight for the North. I won't break this one. Sometimes vows break on you, Davos murmured, like thin ice. Doesn't mean you meant to step that far out. It means I should watch where I'm walking, Jon said. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. The fire popped, sending up a spray of sparks. Shadows leapt along the dragon carvings on the walls, making them seem to writhe and twist. I don't know how to be what they see when they look at me now, he admitted. Aegon, Prince. I barely knew how to be Lord Commander, or King in the North. Each thing I've been, the world's taken it away. Yet here you are, Davos said. Still breathing, still stubborn. That's worth something. More than something, Tormund said. You brought my people south, Crow. You stood in front of hard men with soft hearts and told them we weren't their enemies. You died and came back and didn't run. If that's not a man worth following, I don't know who is. Jon looked between them, the smuggler and the wildling. The two men who had seen him at his lowest and still chose to sit in this dim little room and share their rough wisdom. I don't know if I can keep them all safe, he said. Daenerys, the North, the people in that city. Every choice feels like it's going to kill someone who doesn't deserve it. Then choose the ones that kill the fewest, Davos said, and make bloody sure the ones who do deserve it get theirs. Tormund raised his horn. To killing the right people, he said. Jon didn't drink, but he let the sentiment settle around him like a rough blanket. The map of King's Landing lay between them, lines of ink tracing streets and walls that would soon be real stone under his boots, real blood on his hands. For now, the fire was warm, and he was only a man in a small room, trying to decide who he would be when the dragons took to the sky again. Dragonstone's throne room was a cavern of dark stone and older dreams. The chair at its far end was not so much a throne as a jagged outcropping carved into the shape of a dragon's back, scales and spines rising in a frozen roar behind whoever sat upon it. Torches burned along the walls, their light barely enough to push back the gloom. The sea's distant rumble seeped through the rock. Daenerys stood before the carved map set into the floor, similar to the one Stannis Baratheon had once paced around, similar to the rougher one at Winterfell, but older than both. Her feet rested on depictions of towns and rivers, on names she had learned as a child from Viserys, a litany of places where they should have been loved and welcomed, in his telling, and from which they had instead been driven as exiles and beggars. Her eyes lingered on the southeast for a long time, where the Valyrian Peninsula would have been on a more complete map, long erased from this Westerosi-centric world. Then she let them drift northwest, to the stylized sprawl of King's Landing, the tiny that marked the Red Keep, the empty space where a dragon banner would soon fly. Your father dreamed of this hall, Viserys had told her once, when they were half-starved in some Essosi alley. He wanted to fill it with dragon lords again, to turn the world back to what it was before the usurper and his dogs. He had said many things. She had believed too many of them. You're not him, she said aloud to the empty room. The words echoed back at her, thin and unconvincing. She closed her eyes, seeing fire, the Dothraki riding through Meereen's streets, Arrak's raised, their horses rearing as she burned the masters on their own posts, the slavers' fleet turning to floating pyres under Drogon's breath. The Khals' faces as their tent filled with smoke and heat and she stepped from the flames, naked and crowned in embers. Every city she had taken had begun with chains and ended with ashes in some measure. She had told herself it was the only way, that the world would not be reborn without burning away the rot. Jon's face rose from memory, the way he had looked at her in Winterfell's hall when he spoke his name, when he swore his promise, when he spoke of mothers and children in King's Landing as if they were as real to him as the men who had died at his side. We will do what we can to spare them, she had said. What did that mean, truly? How much of a city could burn before she crossed the line between justice and madness in the eyes of these people? In the eyes of herself? She heard footsteps behind her and did not need to turn to know who they belonged to. "You should be resting," she said. "I could say the same," Tyrion answered. His voice was rougher than usual, the wine doing less to soften it these days. "But I suspect neither of us will sleep much until this is done." She turned then, folding her arms. "Will you warn me again not to do what must be done?" she asked. "You've been looking at me like a man watching a rain barrel that might be full of wildfire." "An evocative image," Tyrion said, "and not entirely inaccurate." Her lips thinned. "You've been talking with Varys," she said. "I talk with many people," he replied. "That is my job. Listening is the other half." "He is worried." "About me," she said flatly. "About what war does to good intentions," Tyrion said. "He has seen more of that than most." "And what have you seen?" she asked. "You served my father. You saw what they made of him in the end. Do you look at me and see him?" He hesitated. In that small pause lay every lie he could have told, every comfort he could have offered. He chose none of them. "I see someone who has lost much," he said, "and is about to risk losing everything, including herself." She laughed once, without humor. "I have been losing things since I was born," she said. "My mother in childbirth, my home to Robert's rebellion, my brother to his own cruelty and a crown of molten gold, my child in the womb to a witch's spite. Dario, Yora, all the men and women who followed me because they believed in the better world I promised them." Her gaze slid to the dragons wheeling faintly beyond the high windows. "If I lose myself now and the world gains that better future, would that not be worth it?" "Not if the world burns with you," Tyrion said softly. "If you become what you mean to destroy." She looked back down at the map, at the small representation of King's Landing, at the invisible people who lived there, packed together in streets she had never walked. "Jon would have me hold back," she said, "even if it risks losing. He thinks mercy can win a war." Tyrion smiled faintly. "He thinks mercy is the only victory worth the word. It's one of the many irritating things about him." "You like him," she said. "I do," Tyrion admitted. "He reminds me of a certain other stubborn bastard who thought he could bend the world to his notions of honor." "Ned Stark," she said. "My brother Jaime," Tyrion corrected, though Ned was no slouch in that department either. She let the silence stretch. The dragon's shadows flickered on the walls, long and distorted. "I gave you my word," she said at last. "In Winterfell, I would not be blind in my rage." Tyrion inclined his head. "You did." "If Cersei forces my hand," Daenerys went on, voice sinking to a near whisper, "if she uses those people as shields, if she tries to turn my mercy into a weakness, I don't know if I can hold back the fire." "Then don't," Tyrion said. She looked up, startled. He went on, "Hold back enough. Remember, the Red Keep is a fortress, not a city. Remember, there are places you can burn and places you must not. Rage is not the enemy, your grace. Losing sight of why you rage is." "Because Cersei sits on my throne," Daenerys said. "Because Cersei kills without thought for anyone but herself," Tyrion corrected. "Because she will keep killing until Sumio. And he stops her. If you burn King's Landing to cinders and call it justice, the wheel will roll on. Your sigil on top, perhaps, but the same old spokes beneath it. If you burn only what you must, if you let the people see that you could have done more and chose not to." He spread his hands. "They might someday sing of you as something other than the Mad King's daughter." She studied him for a long moment. "Jon loves this city," she said suddenly. "He doesn't even know it, but he does. For him, it's where his father died, where his family was broken. He wants to forgive it anyway. That's foolish. And perhaps why the realm might need him as much as it needs you," Tyrion said. Her eyes flashed. "Careful," she said. "I am always careful," he lied. She turned away, cloak flaring. "Tell the fleet to be ready," she said. We sail with the tide. Let Jon have his parley. Let the world see us offer peace. After that, she looked once more at the carving of the city. After that, we see what kind of queen the world makes of me. Tyrion watched her mount the dragonback throne, a small woman on a vast stone beast, and wondered if anyone in that city to the south could possibly understand how much of their fate now rested on the choices of a man who wanted no crown and a woman who had spent half her life chasing one. Dawn painted the sea in bruised colors, purple fading into gray, streaks of weak gold breaking along the horizon where the sun fought through a low bank of cloud. The air was still, holding its breath. Ahead, King's Landing rose from the water like a challenge. Even from a distance, the city's bulk was daunting. The outer walls traced the line of the shore in a jagged arc, towers jutting up at intervals like blunt teeth. Inside them, the dense sprawl of streets and roofs formed a patchwork of tile and timber, smoke already rising from morning fires. The Red Keep loomed high on Aegon's Hill, its towers catching the first true light, turning their stone the color of dried blood. From this angle, high on Rhaegal's back, Jon could see something else, two dark shapes lining the walls, angled toward the sea and the sky. Scorpions. Dozens of them, maybe more. Rhaegal shifted under him, scenting the shore. Drogon's roar answered from higher up, the sound rolling across the water like thunder. On the ships below, men shaded their eyes, staring up at the dragons, then forward at the city. Jon could feel their tension like a taut rope. "They'll see us long before we're within range," Davos had said. "Your only advantage is that they're more afraid of what they think you might do than of what you can do." He had to make that fear work for them. Daenerys' plan, no, their plan, was simple in outline and fraught in execution. The fleet would hold back, just outside the farthest reach of the scorpions. Drogon would climb high, circling, watching. Rhaegal would descend alone, bearing Jon to the strip of land before the main city gates, beneath the sight of every man on the walls. "Don't take off your cloak," Sansa had told him before he left Dragonstone. "Let them see the wolf as well as the dragon. Let them remember whose blood you carry besides Targaryen." Arya had simply pressed the dragonglass dagger into his hand. "Just in case your talking doesn't work," she'd said, "remember, eyes, throat, heart." "Not sure it'll help against scorpions," he'd replied. "Not for them," she'd said, meaning something else entirely. Now, as King's Landing drew nearer, Jon felt the weight of both their counsel like a physical thing. His cloak snapped in the wind, stark gray lined with black. At his hip, Longclaw's familiar bulk was a comfort. The dragonglass dagger rested hidden inside his belt, a colder reassurance. He glanced up. Drogon was little more than a dark smudge against the lightning sky, but he knew Daenerys was there, watching. He could feel it, though they were too far apart for words. "Easy," he murmured to Rhaegal. "Just a little lower." The dragon responded, angling his wings, beginning a slow descent. The city swelled beneath them. Shouts drifted up from the walls, thin and indistinct. The scorpion's crews scrambled, adjusting angles. Jon's throat tightened. He raised one hand, palm open, the other gripping the ridge of scales. He remembered a long-ago ride beyond the wall, approaching wildling lines under a flag of truce, his heart pounding then much as it did now. Men were men, whether they wore furs or gold-trimmed armor. Fear made them stupid. Fear made them dangerous. "Don't be stupid," he muttered toward the city. "Don't make me prove everyone right about dragons and madness." Rhaegal leveled out, beating his wings hard. The wind shifted, carrying the stink of the city, smoke and sewage and humanity in all its unwashed glory. Jon's eyes watered. They came to rest on a strip of rocky ground outside the great gates, just beyond bowshot range from the walls, well clear of the shallows where the scorpion's bolts would strike strongest. Rhaegal landed in a spray of dust and pebbles, folding his wings with ill grace. His sides heaved. Jon slid down, boots hitting the ground heavier than they had on Dragonstone. The city loomed above him now, massive and implacable. The walls were a sheer curtain of pale stone. Guards peered down over the battlements, faces small and pale. On a section of wall above the main gate, a figure in crimson and gold stepped forward. Qyburn, perhaps, or some other messenger. But when the figure raised a hand, Jon saw a flash of pale hair interwoven with gold. Cersei had come to look at the man who challenged her. He drew a breath, letting the air fill his lungs despite the sourness of it. Then he stepped forward, Rhaegal's presence at his back like a mountain. "I am Jon Snow," he called, his voice carrying farther than he would have thought possible. "Known to some of you as Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. I come as envoy of Queen Daenerys Targaryen, breaker of chains, mother of dragons, who waits above with the power to burn this city to the ground." The words echoed off stone, bounced back at him. "Today," he went on, "she offers you another choice." The silence after his declaration stretched so long that Jon began to wonder if the wind had stolen his voice before it reached the walls. Then there was a stir along the parapets. Guards shifted. A ripple of motion ran through the small folk clustered behind them, their faces pale blurs above worn cloaks and frayed shawls. On the raised platform above the gate, Cersei stepped to the very edge, flanked by Qyburn and, to Jon's surprise, Ser Gregor Clegane. More armor than man, a hulking, silent threat. "Another Targaryen prince?" Cersei called down, her voice clear and mocking. "How many of you must I suffer in my lifetime?" Jon forced his shoulders square. "I am no prince of yours," he said, "and I did not come to bandy titles. I come to end this war before it burns the city you sit in." "End it?" she repeated. "By bending the knee to your silver-haired usurper? Perhaps I should simply open the gates and let her dogs feast on my people." Murmurs rose from the crowd behind her. Fear, anger, hope in a few faces. Jon focused on those. "You know me," he said, raising his voice. "Some of you stood on these walls when Stannis Baratheon's ships burned in this very bay. Some of you lined the streets when my father was brought out to die. Some of you spat at his feet. You know what Lannister mercy looks like." Cersei's lips thinned. "I have fought in wars I did not start," Jon went on. "I've seen what happens when kings and queens use small folk as shields. I've seen armies trample villages into mud and call it a march." He gestured toward the city. "I will not pretend that if we fight, there will be no fire. There will. Dragons do not take cities gently. But I swear to you, by the gods of the north and south both, that we will do everything we can to spare you. We will aim our fire at soldiers and scorpions and the castle that squats above you, not at your homes." "Fine words," Cersei said. "Easily spoken by a man with a dragon at his back and no children in these streets." "I have children in those streets," Jon said sharply. "Not by blood, but in truth. Every child in this city is the reason we fought the dead. We did not stand at Winterfell to watch you die here." A murmur swept the walls. Someone shouted, "He killed the Night King." Another voice argued, "No, it was a girl in the north." A third yelled, "They all fought. Better than this lot ever have." Cersei's gaze flicked sideways, then back. "You presume to teach me care for my people?" she asked. "I kept them safe when your father's Mad King wanted to burn them all. I kept the city fed amidst siege and betrayal." "You blew up your own sept," Jon said. "You murdered thousands in one stroke. Don't talk to me of care." A ripple of unease moved through the crowd. Even now, years later, the wound of that green fire had not healed. Faces went pale. Eyes slid away from the queen's back. Qyburn leaned in to whisper something in her ear. Her jaw clenched. She waved him back. "What do you want?" she demanded. "Your surrender," Jon said simply. "Lay down your arms. Step away from that throne. Come down from those walls. Stand before the world and admit that your time is done. Do that, and Daenerys Targaryen will spare the city. You will answer for your crimes, but your people will live." A long pause. "And if I refuse?" Cersei asked. Jon drew a breath, heavy with sea salt and the faint, sour reek of the city. Then dragons will fly, he said. Fire will fall. We will take this city piece by piece, and every death will be on your head. The world will know that you chose their ashes over your pride. Cersei laughed, a brittle, cutting sound. You speak of pride as if you do not wear it like a cloak, bastard, she said. Do you think I am fooled? You stand there with Rhaegar's face and Lyanna's eyes and ask me to surrender to the girl who would be your queen, when every lord in your ragged army is already whispering your name. I didn't come here to argue claims, Jon said. I came here to stop a slaughter. And I didn't come this far to kneel, she replied. Her voice hardened. You talk of my crimes, of wildfire. Did you think I would not see the same madness in the woman you serve? I've heard the stories from Essos. I've seen what she does to cities that displease her. You think she will spare this one because you ask nicely? She is not her father, Jon said. She gave me her word. Kings and queens break words as often as they breathe, Cersei said. You should know that by now. Your father learned it the hard way. So did mine. She lifted her hand. The scorpions around the walls adjusted minutely, wooden limbs creaking. This is my city, she said. My home. My children's bones are in its ground. I will not hand it over to a foreign invader and a dragon-riding bastard because they threaten me. Let them come. Let them burn. And when the smoke clears, the world will see that Targaryen fire only ever brings ruin. Her gaze bored into him. Go back to your silver queen, Jon Snow. Tell her I will not kneel. Tell her that if she wants the throne, she can take it from my corpse. The murmur on the walls rose to a roar. Some shouted assent, fists raised. Others looked sick, uncertain. Several pairs of eyes, Jon saw, slid to the dragons circling above, then back to the queen, as if weighing the odds of surviving her defiance. Rhaegal growled low behind him. Jon could feel the dragon's muscles tensing, the flick of his tail. The scorpion's bolts glinted in the rising sun, aimed at his heart. You still have a choice, Jon called one last time. You all do. His gaze swept the walls, the crowd, the city. Remember that when the fire falls. He turned his back on the Queen of the Ashes she seemed determined to make and walked to Rhaegal. Each step felt like a stone dropping somewhere inside his chest. The dragon lowered his head. Jon climbed up, feeling the weight of 100,000 eyes on him. He did not look back. As Rhaegal beat his wings and took to the sky, the wind tore the last shreds of hope from his throat. He swallowed them and turned instead to the cold determination that had kept him alive this long. He had offered mercy. Now, if fire came, it would not come without warning. The air above the city was thinner, colder, cleaner than the reek rising from its streets. Drogon hung in that high space like a dark spear tip, wings outstretched, the membranes trembling with the effort of holding him steady against the wind. Daenerys sat near his neck, her body aligned with his, one hand resting lightly on a spike of bone. Rhaegal hovered slightly behind and below, green scales shimmering in the weak sunlight, Jon a grim figure on his back. From this height, King's Landing looked almost peaceful. The red roofs and pale stone streets formed a pattern, almost pretty, like something a child might draw if they had never seen men die in those alleys. The red keep sat on its hill like a clenched fist. The Blackwater glittered beyond, dotted with tiny shapes that were, in truth, warships loaded with men who would gladly kill both dragons if they could. The scorpions were lines of dark metal along the walls and towers, their bolts turned upward now, glinting like a field of thorns. Daenerys's hair whipped around her face in the wind. She half-turned, enough to catch Jon's eye. Well? She shouted, voice barely carrying. She refused, Jon called back. She'll not surrender. Not for her people. Not for anything. Daenerys's jaw clenched. For a moment he thought he saw something like grief there, quickly swallowed. Not for Cersei, but for the choice that had been confirmed. The people heard, Jon went on. They saw her refuse. Whatever happens now, they'll know. She nodded once. It was not the vindication she had wanted, but it was something. Remember your promise, he said. Her eyes flashed. "Remember yours," she replied. "If this goes wrong, if I fall, they will look to you. Don't pretend they won't." "I'll do everything to keep you from falling," he said. "And I," she answered, "will do everything to make sure we do not burn what we mean to rule." Below, a bell began to ring. Not the panicked, desperate clamor of surrender this time, but a steady, tolling note. The city was readying itself. Daenerys turned her gaze downward. Her fingers tightened on Drogon's neck. "Scorpions first," she shouted. "Then the fleet, then the Red Keep. Keep to the flanks. Take out what you can without flying straight into their line." Jon nodded. He could feel Rhaegal's eagerness beneath him, the dragon's hatred for the sharp little things that had already wounded him once. "Stay high," he murmured into warm scales. "Strike and climb. We're no good to anyone dead." He didn't know if Rhaegal understood the words, but the tone, the touch, the memory of the last time they'd fallen from the sky, those perhaps the dragon knew. Drogon roared, the sound tearing a path through cloud and fear alike. He folded his wings and dropped like a stone. Rhaegal followed. The wind became a scream. The city swelled, rushing up toward them, details sharpening. The faces of men at the Scorpions, eyes wide. The glitter of armor. The narrow little streets that would in a few breaths be choking with smoke and blood. Jon set his jaw. He had admitted what he was. Wolf and dragon, Stark and Targaryen. Now, in the furnace waiting below, he would find out whether those halves could shape something new, or whether they would tear him apart and drag the world down with him. Rhaegal opened his jaws. Fire gathered in his throat.